the interesting thing is that there's often a kind of critical consensus, which is anything that's sentimental, anything that is seen to be manipulative, is somehow unworthy. And it was interesting in that interview, and we talked to Spielberg very specifically about, he was talking about justified tears, worthy tears, and which is different to button pushing tears. And he made that gag about, just shooting the dog is the button pushing tears. That there is something more than that. Now, there are things in Warhorse which are clearly in the realms of the fantastical, particularly when you first see the landscape. There's the problem I always had with Saving Private Ryan was, if you remember the shots of the house, the sort of homestead in which Private Ryan's mum is sitting there kneading bread, I think virtually when the people come up there to say, this terrible thing has happened. Actually, in the case of Warhorse, the aesthetic is very much the same. When you first see that landscape, it looks like it's a painted. It almost looks like an animated landscape. It does not look like any part of the country that you would recognise.
Apart from Devon.
No, but it doesn't look like Devon. It looks like a painted, colourful version. It looks like a fantastical version of Devon because there is something about the way it's lit. There is something about the way it's shot. It has a feeling of artificiality about it. The thing is that I don't have a problem with that because actually, as far as I'm concerned, the story that's being told here, which has been told in several different ways before, it's been told as a book and it's been told as a stage play, and we should say, in interest of honesty, I have not read the book and I haven't seen the stage play either. Have you?
No, neither.
Okay, fine. So you're taking the thing exactly as it is, okay? It is sentimental and schmaltzy and melodramatic, and I don't mean any of those things as a criticism. What I wanted when I went to see it was I wanted to be drawn into the drama, I wanted to be engaged in it, I wanted to be swept up in it in the way that melodrama does, and I've always had this feeling that with Spielberg's works, the best Spielberg works are the films in which he remembers his popcorn past. He's most playing to the audience. I love Jaws. I really like War of the Worlds. I'm not crazy about Schindler's List. I think The Colour Purple is deeply flawed. And for a while, I had this sort of theory that the more serious and worthy a Spielberg film is, the less great it is. And in fact, the ones that, like Jaws, which are basically put together, they're works of cinema fundamentally, the better they are. In the case of Warhorse, I think that what it does is manipulative, but I think that it does the manipulation really well, and I wanted to be manipulated.
That's our listener's point about listening to Bill Clinton. You're kind of you know what he's doing.
You know what's going.
But
yeah.
You're going to go with it anyway.
Yeah, because there is an assumption that somehow it's easy to manipulate in that way. So, firstly, the thing is designed with great artifice, and I think that's perfectly fine. It is an episodic story, which means that the horse travels through actually does it rather rigidly through the various different areas, through the various different sides. We see battle from all sides. We see conflict from all sides. We see it from the side of two different armies. We see it from the side of people who were caught up in a conflict without actually being involved in the conflict. And the horse is our arc through this. And obviously, in the case of the book has the horse is the first person narrative that's changed somewhat in the stage play. But for me, I didn't feel that was problematic. I know some people have found the episodic nature problematic. I didn't feel it was problematic. And the reason I didn't was because I was completely swept up in the schmaltz, in the sentimentality. And I thought that the battle scenes were... I thought that they were. It was funny. He was talking about them in the interview about the way in which they're not Saving Private Ryan. In that what you're not seeing is people being ripped apart and the real sort of full horror of war. Although obviously, actually, no movie will ever give you the full horror of war. I remember when Saving Private Ryan was out, somebody said, "Oh yes, it's actually like being there." I go, well, no, of course it isn't. It's a movie. It's completely different. But I did think that the sense of threat, the sense of endangerment, the sense of the horror of it was palpable. There is one sequence in which the horse runs essentially out of right through this amazing sort of strewn battlefield, and there is a real sense of impending disaster. There is also a very, very moving sequence then, which is played out in the middle of no man's land, which I think many people have referred to. I don't want to go into too much detail, just in case you don't already know the story, in which you do genuinely feel emotionally engaged with both sides of the conflict and with somehow embodied in the middle of it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't scenes that aren't wantonly sentimental and that aren't absolutely particularly with the way the score works. John Williams' scores never back off in telling you what's going on in the movie. And Spielberg himself, when he's at his most kind of cinematic, has never been accused of under-egging the pudding. The fact of the matter is, all that stuff is in here, but I think it works, and I think it worked. And here's the proof that it worked. I cried. And I don't mean no, but don't. I mean that as the thing did exactly what it was meant to do.
You cry lots.
I do, but I don't. But I don't ever take it lightly. It's meant to be an emotional, engaging roller coaster ride. And part of that is that you have to be sentimentally involved in it. And here's the point about this is when people say sentimentality, somehow it sounds bad. When people say schmaltz, it sounds bad. When people say manipulate, it sounds bad. But it's possible for all those things to be done in a way that is not. And frankly, my feeling about it is that the movie did exactly what it set out to do. It set out to engage me in the story of this horse, to be I mean, particularly when you consider the audience that it's aimed at. It was very interesting that the email that you just read out then about, it's been given a 12 certificate. I wouldn't show it to people younger than that, because I think the battle scenes are very, very intense. I mean, you do feel a sense of endangerment, and that is very important. But the most important thing is that you feel emotionally engaged, and the manipulation, even while you know you're being manipulated, even while the screen is glowing with Miller time, the score is surging with, with that, that whole, here we go, and this is an emotion, all that stuff is happening. The reaction shots are happening. It's all working together, because the fact of the matter is there's nobody that conducts sentimental, manipulative schmaltz better than Spielberg, and he understands how to make a family film. And this is, I think it is genuinely a family film. I think if you go and see it with your 12-year-old, and I agree that perhaps not, in fact, I think I will show it to my 10-year-old, you'll all cry.